let's go to Ben Shapiro's the law office of Shapiro, Coffee, and Shapiro, and it's a nice set. It is lovely. You got to give him credit. It's quality. Like nothing else is done in that room. That room has one purpose. His showroom serves no other purpose in his home or office. None. Eat that, Don Jr.
Have a new book titled Peril. And in this book, there's a bit of...
By the way, this is another example of Ben Shapiro taking Bob Woodward's word for it without a hesitancy when it's convenient.
Shocking revelation. The shocking revelation is that General Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff...
Not shocking at all.
...assured his Chinese counterpart, General Li Zhuochang of the People's Liberation Army, that the United States would not strike.
Would not strike.
Apparently he did this twice. Apparently he was so fearful, twice, in the final months of the Trump administration, that the president's action might spark a war with China, he moved urgently to avert armed conflict. Because number one, you have to ask yourself, where did this story come from? And where did the story come from? Because apparently there's only two people on that phone call. One is Mark Milley, and the other is General Li Zhuochang of the People's Liberation Army.
Well, no, there's a lot of people listening on the line. There's a lot of people involved in a call like that. There was staff. This was not one-to-one. He didn't call him on his cell phone on his way to get a cab after a night out in D.C.
Presumably Woodward didn't get this from the Chinese, which means that...
Because it was in English? What?
...is bragging about this, which is not...
Hold on. Thank you. A compliment. Hold on. Hal, your makeshift studio is outstanding. You're always working on it, coming up with new ideas, man. That's what keeps it interesting. Can't wait to see the finished product. Thank you, Benito. I'm trying.
Because Mark Milley has a greatly inflated sense of both his own importance and of the historical moment. Right? Mark Milley was the one who was comparing January 6th to an actual Reichstag fire and suggesting the entire democracy was in danger, which of course wasn't true.
Wasn't true? Well, that's because the people who were engaging in it were total fuck-ups. The action itself, on its basis, thousands of people storming the Capitol, breaking down doors, getting inside, beating up cops, getting into offices, breaking through barricades, and a woman getting shot because she was the first through the door, building a gallows. Yeah, all those things, like on your insurrection or coup checklist, those are things you want to hit. Luckily, though, as many of us were aware, the people carrying it out were massive fuck-ups, like their dear leader. And therefore, the real threat wasn't there, ultimately, but only because there were people there doing their job.
He has this kind of bizarre, blown-up sense of himself.
Really? The Ben Shapiro Show? Is it on the Daily Wire? He has a blown-up opinion of himself? Really? Well, I would guess that's something that someone should shun, you know what I mean? Otherwise, you'll end up like Diane Bongino with a bunch of your own, like one graphic just put behind you like wallpaper, or converting your garage into a bizarre old-fashioned morning radio or morning, like, AM Tulsa kind of studio that you don't let the kids anywhere near. You know what I mean?
The man standing in the gap, standing in the breach. Okay, so, but even if you believe that, there are ways to resist presidential illegal orders. And number one, you don't carry them out. Number two, you can threaten to quit. We actually have precedent for this during the Trump administration.
Well, he did do that. He also was talking to staff, and he goes, you can't, like, fire me or go around me. I have to be on the call if he threatens this. And the Chinese were calling, thinking that this was going to get ramped up and that he was going to wag their dog, if you know what I mean, because he was going out the door, and this might be a way to guarantee himself a way to stay in office. And they're like, don't worry. Believe me, if we're going to attack, I'll call you. Click.
Even if it's not illegal, you can threaten to quit. James Mattis did it several times before he actually quit. Right? The Secretary of Defense, General James Mattis, you'll recall that Donald Trump wanted him to do particular things that he didn't want to do in Syria, and Mattis just went to him and was like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, he's like, then just wear the outfit. He's like, I'm not doing it, or whatever. Look, just let's have a couple of drinks, and we'll play just the tip, and we'll see.
And then Trump backed down. Well, Milley could have done the same thing. He didn't. He didn't even go to Congress. Right? Milley apparently went directly to the enemy. He went directly.
Well, he did go to Congress. He talked to Nancy Pelosi about this, and she extended that concern. And they realized that there are limited fail-safes to protect us from going to war with China if he creates the situation where it was a defensive strike, I had to do it, and they were in the room and I launched it, and that was that. I made an executive decision. And by the time, if you start a war, in Nicaragua, you can pull that leash back and there can be hearings. If you launch a nuclear strike, that's one and done. That's it. That's the ball game.
To the Chinese government. And he said to them, this crazy guy in the White House, man, that guy's crazy. And if he orders us to do anything militarily, even if it's legal, I'm just not going to do it. In fact, I will call you first. I will call you first.
Well, no, he couldn't launch a nuclear strike legally by himself unless they were already launching one on us.
And then you wonder why so many conservatives worry about the quote-unquote deep state coup. Because that sounds an awful lot like a deep state coup. I mean, even Alex...
Well, yeah, if you want to make it up. Even Alex what?
Vindman, right? The guy who is...
Alexander Vindman, right?
Who is phoning in the Ukraine phone call, very anti-Trump. Even he was...
Who's now a valid source, according to Ben Shapiro. Because Vindman didn't like it. He thought it was an overstep of his of Milley's role in government. And so therefore Alexander Vindman now good.
This is insane. Because it is. Civilian control of the military is a bulwark of American republicanism. Okay, so according to Bob Woodward's book.
You had to have an edit there? Or did somebody go, wrap it up?
The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff under President Trump, General Mark Milley, called up the head of the Chinese military, General Li Zhuochang.
Yes, you already tried this.
Told him the United States would not strike. One call, according to the Washington Post, took place on October 30th, 2020, 4 days before the election that unseated President Trump. The other took place January 8th, 2021, 2 days after the Capitol siege carried out by his supporters in a quest to cancel the vote. The first call was prompted by Milley's review of intelligence suggesting the Chinese believed the United States was preparing to attack. That belief, the authors write, was based on tensions over military exercises in the South China Sea and deepened by Trump's belligerent rhetoric toward China. Milley apparently called up General Li and said, quote, "I want to assure you the American government is stable and everything is going to be okay. We are not going to attack or conduct any kinetic operations against you." In the book's account, Milley went so far as to pledge...
In the book's account.
...alert his counterpart in the event of a U.S. attack, stressing the rapport they'd established through a back channel. "General Li, you and I have known each other for 5 years now. If we're going to attack, I'm going to call you ahead of time. It's not going to be a surprise." That's insane. Okay? We're not even talking about post-election at this point. This is still pre-election. This is before any of the January 6th stuff. This is before any of the election fraud stuff. None of which, by the way, justifies breaking the chain of command in illegal ways, which is apparently what Milley did.
Well, no, I'm sure part of his mandate as chairman of the Joint Chiefs is to stabilize our relationship with China to some degree and head off battles that we don't need to have. But whatever.
Well, but again, this is even before any of that. This is October 30th. Now, I recall that period. I recall October, November, December, January. Wasn't that long ago? Was there widespread talk about how the United States was going to enter a full-scale fighting war with the Chinese?
Apparently, in China, there was.
Was that even on the table?
Apparently, it wasn't on the Daily Wire's radar.
Even discussing that? Like, I feel like I would have heard about that, given the fact that President Trump is a big devotee to cable news. And cable news presumably would have been discussing that pretty rapidly if Trump were talking about it. Like, what were the actual possibilities?
Well, apparently he thought it was an actual possibility. And what are the possibilities that you and people like you were intentionally ignoring all of Trump's erratic behavior around the election as he saw himself losing and was clamoring that it was rigged and it was going to be rigged? What do you think the chances are that Ben and all of his buddies were just looking the other way at every crazy thing that Trump continued to do leading up to the election? And then, of course, the same thing occurs in January 6th and blowing that shit off.
Chinese thought that we were going to start a shooting war with a country with 1 billion humans in it.
Hold on. More like 600 million, but that's another one. Hold on. Now, one of the reasons why there was a lot of talk about what was going to happen in terms of China was our defense of Hong Kong and China's actions in Hong Kong stacked on top of the awareness in the country that was growing about the Uyghur concentration camps. This was all going on. And it was getting increasingly heavier as the year went on. So yes, there was absolutely a lot of shit happening leading up to the election. And Trump's continuing ratcheting up of blaming China for this and then using the Hong Kong protests mixed with his belief that we were attacked by China. China could have stopped this. This is their fault. There was, I mean, there were like absolutely concurrent conversations happening during this about this. So yeah, the only thing is that Ben Shapiro didn't give a rat fuck. This was all happening leading up to the election, and Trump was blaming China for COVID and his potential loss. Everything was going fine until we got hit by COVID, and China wants to, they're behind Hunter Biden and they want to get Biden elected, and no better friend, and they're attacking Hong Kong and Uyghur concentration camps. There was a perfect storm building that if there was a time to attack China, this might be it. Especially if you're in the Chinese Communist Party and you're concerned about these things because you're thinking the exact same shit. Yeah, not exactly the calmest time in China. So yes, there was a lot of fucking things going on in relation to our relationship with China, the growing tension over COVID, the rising death rate. There were, by the way, China was having calls about that with a bunch of countries.
But what does anyone actually believe that, or is Milley just a delusional, thoroughly self-obsessed human being?
Yeah, could it be that Milley is a thoroughly obsessed, self-obsessed human being, or could it be that Trump had recently referred to it as Kung flu, and the Wu flu, and the Wuhan flu, and the China virus, and you could call it a bunch of different names, and China sent it here on purpose, and meanwhile this shit is happening at the exact same time. The Chinese are using so many of their resources to push back and round up pro-democracy people in Hong Kong at the same time this shit is going on. And this isn't, George Floyd level protests. This is a January 6th level protest. This is the Hong Kong people pushing back against the existence of the mainland Chinese government and its control over Hong Kong. Look at the candlelight vigils. That's let's see, May 20th. Let's see if they can get a the protest starting in like around May 27th. This is all this stuff, and then you can go and there are dozens of quotes from Trump about COVID leading up to the election that were getting more and more intense. And he was screaming around the White House, shitting his pants every day.
And is it insane? That's insane that he called.
No, you're fucking dumb, Ben. Genuinely, China, the Chinese Communist Party is teetering. Right now, I don't even know if I have to show you guys this, because maybe you know. But this is, you want to know what's going on right now? Let's see, hold on. Here, this is 8 hours ago. This is the most recent one. China is having what would effectively be considered a Lehman Brothers moment in their economy. Okay, this is the Chinese government backed this real estate company Evergrande, which owns 2% of commercial real estate in the entire country, which is huge. And they lease it from the government, of course, but all the developments. They reached junk bond status about 4 days ago. They were downgraded to like CAA and then triple C. And the question right now is Beijing going to bail them out? They are $300 billion in debt, and they only have one industry. Most of the companies, for example, when we had our major slide, when the shit hit the fan in 2008, a lot of the companies that got in trouble, the credit default swaps part of their business started to eat the other parts. But there were enough other parts that you could salvage it. You know, the banks, and Elizabeth Warren is wanting to break up Wells Fargo around this number, that the firewall isn't strong enough. She believes a second 2008 is possible if they don't further bifurcate. They need to be broken up in two separate companies. The real estate holdings that kind of do the credit default swap shit should be completely divorced from personal checking accounts and that kind of stuff. It should be totally different businesses, right? But quite frankly, the checking account part of being a bank is a money loser compared to the other stuff. So they don't want to do that. All right. But that's how they claim to be a bank, and that's how they keep their name up, and that keeps investors, the value high and all that shit. So when that happened, when we had 2008, you could go and go, all right, we'll separate these guys out, and you can give bonuses to people who aren't in that department. If they can get you guys to pay back the money the government loaned you, however quick, you can give whatever bonuses you want to those people, as long as the government and the taxpayer is getting paid back as quick as possible, right? So these companies had, 20% or 15% in credit default swaps and that kind of shit, and the rest of their business was in, regular holdings and in other businesses and stuff like that. Evergrande is 95% real estate holdings, and they're all shit. They're all falling apart. And they just announced that in September, they're expecting sales to drop of new units. The ones that they should be able to sell because they have no cash on hand. So they should be able to take that, we're building these other buildings. These buildings are failing, but these buildings are fine. And if we can sell those, we can refinance the buildings that are failing and do something about it. And they could diversify their holdings, and make some of that money back. But right now, nobody wants their money in it. There were people who, let's see if I can find it real quick. Since we're having a segment on what Ben Shapiro doesn't know, which would fill every show I could do till the end of time. Let's see, Evergrande protest lobby. So yesterday, day before yesterday, here you go. This is 3 days ago. Okay, because a woman receives aid on the ground next to Du Jiang, the general manager and legal representative of Evergrande's wealth management division. She passed out after she saw what they came down and made an offer. There should be more pictures in this or whatever, so I can show you guys. Nope. There you go. Protesters showed up at the headquarters of Evergrande, and they want their money back. They want to get paid. Here, let's see if we can, let's see, images. Yeah, here they go. So they showed up. The cops came out, formed a line, moved everybody out. The chairman of the board, or one of their main representatives, that's the dude who's sitting next to the lady who passed out right here. He came down, and the company made an offer of 40 cents on the dollar if people wanted cash right away in exchange for their stuff, basically leveraging them. And they all told them to go fuck themselves. And then the cops ran them out. This is fucking gnarly. Here's the sell-off of Evergrande. Hold on. Let me expand this a little bit so you can look at it. A pow. This is dropping off. Now this is 2008-9. There you go. This is, yeah, and here's people sitting outside the building. They've invested all their money in it. It's fucked up, and it is a huge boondoggle. It is, honest to God, it is. I think I've talked to you guys about Chinese ghost cities before, but where they just keep building and nobody's in them, and then the buildings are so poorly made that they're gonna fall down before you ever move in. Yeah, here you go. Got Chinese ghost cities. Hold on. Yeah, this is. One second. Move this back. There you go. 28 photos of China's massive uninhabited ghost cities. Let's see if where are they making a China? Yeah. So all these buildings are empty. Most of them don't have like even glass in the windows. They do it at the ends of the building. But these are all just holes. They remake stuff. There's one with an Eiffel Tower. They just built an Eiffel Tower. Just why? Why not? I've seen Spirit Away. I'm picking up what you're putting down. Indeed, Templeton. Hi, Templeton. It's good to see you. They make these giant. Look at this. It looks like someplace where you'd shoot the Expendables. Yeah, Chinese ghost city of Caofeidian was built on reclaimed land. Not quite reclaimed enough because it flooded again. Where's the? It supposedly has more. There we go. I guess so. There you go. So take this out. Kabashi, Ghost City. Like these are, they set these up like malls and stuff, but there's just fucking nobody. I've been there. That's the Ordos Museum. We drove past this. This is all empty. Created with an investment of 1.61 billion in early 2000s, Kangbashi was a capacity to house over 300,000 people. So far 30,000 people have moved in. Pictured here, densely built but sparsely inhabited apartment develops in Kangbashi, and they're all falling apart. And they've all got cranes on top of them because they're continuing to build. This is an outdoor mall in Caofeidian that's modeled after a traditional Italian village. So this is what that company is making. This is what Evergrande does. They make all these buildings and nobody lives in them with the idea that one day you're going to move in, but there's no stores and the roads are only half built, and then there's this kind of shit. After this construction site was half built, all bank loans in Caofeidian were halted and projects were suspended due to rising costs of raw materials and lack of government support. I mean, I was joking that the national animal of China is the panda and it should be the crane because these things are everywhere and they're building empty fucking buildings. These are people crashing in unfinished buildings, so they squat in these giant buildings. Just on and on. I mean, amazing structures. New buildings in Ordos is commonly referred to as a ghost town due to its lack of residents. It has also been nicknamed the Dubai of China by locals because it's a big, gaudy, empty mess. Yeah, this is China. Look at this shit. There's the Eiffel Tower again. They just rebuilt these cities. You don't have to travel. We'll build it here. Empty. Fucking empty. 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 This is freaking crazy. And so stack that up. Understand that that's all over the place. Imagine in the United States if every major city had a Detroit attached to it with miles and miles of empty, busted out buildings everywhere. And everybody in the regular part of town had invested all their money in those buildings that are unlivable. Yeah, it's called tofu dreg. That's right. Tofu dreg. And then, so that's going on. They boosted Evergrande. They boosted Evergrande last year and 2 years ago, just they're throwing good money after bad. And now it's just gotten worse and worse to the point where it's just fucked. And then while they're doing that, they're building all this shit and fighting with the people in Hong Kong. And the United States is sick of there's been a groundswell about the Uyghurs in the United States. They're finally recognizing how awful it is. And then on top of that, COVID happens. So yeah, in November of last year, it's completely reasonable that the Chinese think the world fucking hates them and that war might be coming because they're on their fucking heels. And for the record, love Chinese culture and the Chinese people, can't stand the government. It's fucked up. I've been there a bunch. You guys know I speak Chinese. I was in China for like months at a time for the 3 years leading up to COVID. And I went there with full of excitement to shoot this show, full of excitement to do a travel show there because I care about it. I like the people. I've studied martial arts my whole life. I love the, 中国文化. I love the culture. However, over the time I was there, I became increasingly disillusioned as the propaganda department was clearly arranging for us to see stuff, and it was increasingly bullshit. And it was sad. And it didn't have to be. But face is so important in Chinese culture that it's reached a toxic level in the government that they're dug in. I am very big in China. I've got a lot of fans over there, unfortunately.
The Chinese, even if you believed that, the element of surprise is a bit of a thing in a war. Let's say that Trump had issued an actual legal order to fire on a Chinese boat in the South China Sea. Is Milley actually going to warn the Chinese that we're about to do that? Losing the fundamental element of surprise in a...
No, they're going to call you and get your people back or we're going to fire on it. We do that a lot. That's what he's talking about. If we're going to attack you, we'll give you a chance to leave. But we're serious. I will give you the we're serious phone call. Happens all the time.
Conflict? Also, the notion...
Same thing happened with me in Brazil. You mean because you went there and you're like, you love Brazilian culture and all that kind of stuff? And then you go down there and you're like, this is disappointing. Do I blame Winnie the Pooh? Yes, I do. No, Mr. Webcast is probably the only person who knows what that means.
We would have to call the Chinese is crazy. Because again, we do have procedures to defy illegal orders in the military. CNN reported on this back in September of 2018. Based on another Bob Woodward book, actually. Because a couple of years ago...
How you should run for mayor of LA? Well, Fancy, you should say that. Yes, she is Pooh, that's right.
There's a Bob Woodward book talking about how James Mattis was mouthing off about Trump and all of the rest of this. But CNN reported at the time that all of the top U.S. commanders would push back against an order from Trump for a nuclear strike if it were, quote-unquote, illegal. General John Hyten, who is the top U.S. nuclear commander, said, quote, I provide advice to the president. He'll tell me what to do. If it's illegal, guess what's going to happen? I'm going to say, Mr. President, that's illegal. Guess what he's going to do? He's going to say what would be legal, and we'll come up with options of a mix of capabilities to respond to whatever the situation is. That's the way it works. It's not that complicated. Hyten emphasized the U.S.
Yeah, but that was predicated on the idea that Trump was sane at that point. Now he's surrounded by lunatics like Sidney Powell. And Rudy Giuliani was drunk there every day. Holy shit.
Has the obligation to follow only legal orders, including those entailing the launch of nuclear weapons. Also, Air Force General Robert Keeler, who served as commander of U.S. Strategic Command under Obama, said there are layers of safeguards within the system designed to ensure any order is legal and proportionately appropriate. Quote, U.S. nuclear forces operate under strict civilian control. Only the President of the United States can order the employment of U.S. nuclear weapons. This is a system controlled by human beings. Nothing happens automatically.
No, he never said it would happen automatically. He was saying that because the president could do this and he was becoming unhinged, that was an increasingly troubling part of his job.
Military analyst John Kirby. Right now, he's the spokesperson.
Yeah, it's a good question. Why is he talking to his laptop? Are we all just barging in on his FaceTime in the garage?
Person for the Pentagon. But at that point, he was a military analyst.
Oh my gosh, Dead Sea Genesis. Thank you so much. That's amazing, Den. And thank you, Templeton, as well. Payment for a front seat to the Sparks Bongino fight. Excellent. Okay.
He said that military judge advocates and general counsel are active participants in the decision-making process at virtually every level, from the tactical to the strategic. He said they help ensure political appointees and uniformed commanders fully understand and consider law of war principles, as well as the dictates of congressional legislation, before any final decision is reached regarding the use of armed force in defense of the nation, particularly
under normal circumstances. But if some asshole friend of the president's has a gun and he's pointing it at the head of somebody like Martin Sheen at the end of Dead Zone, you run into trouble.
Planning of combat
Ben
operations.
would kick my butt in a debate. Ben's head would bump against my ass in a debate. Like, is there somebody in here debating me?
So in other words, is there any circumstance under which it would have been necessary for an American general to go to the Chinese and say, we're going to give you a heads up on a...
Yes. If you have a boat in the South China Seas, we're going to give you one last chance to get your boat out so your people don't die. Because we'd rather not have a giant battle between the two of you. That's where that would happen. Of course there is. And there's probably a dozen more, but that's the easy one.
Military attack? How is that not borderline treason? I mean, no matter how much I hate Trump, let's say you're a Democrat. Do you want that same logic being applied to Joe Biden? Do you want the generals to
Yes, if Joe Biden decides to do a unilateral attack on the Chinese with a nuclear launch, yeah, I would like the same. As a matter of fact, I would like better safeguards in place so that at least a meeting of the heads of the different branches, including perhaps even the I don't know, SCOTUS involved in this. What's the legal ramifications of this particular attack? These are the facts as we know them. It's a nuclear launch. Yeah. And the next time we get into a war, a big, long, protracted war, you goddamn right I'd like a long conversation. And this has nothing to do with a defensive attack. That's the thing. Nowhere in this is Milley going, look, if you guys attack us, I'll let you know if we're going to strike back. Fuck off. He's saying if we do some sort of out-of-the-blue attack, we'll give you a shot to move your fuckers back. You get your ships out of the area so your people don't die. But if he's actually going to do it.
Up targets of American military ire and being like, yeah, guys, we're not going to obey any of those orders. And if Biden threatens you, it's an empty threat. In the second call, placed to assuage Chinese fears about the events of January 6th, Lee wasn't as easily assuaged, even after Milley promised him, quote, we are 100% steady, everything's fine, but democracy can be sloppy.
Yeah, it looked a little gnarly. And again, they're also dealing with the collapse of their government. And they're afraid that the people that would be taking over, let's say, January 6th had worked out, that Trump had actually decertified the election and managed to get back into power. He was going to, and they were on their heels because of Hong Kong, the Uyghurs, and other stuff. And Europe decided this is done. We're sick of China. We're calling China's bluff. This is the day. That's what they're afraid of. And it's a reasonable fear.
Lee remained rattled. Milley, who did not relay the conversation to Trump, understood why. The chairman, 62 at the time, chosen by Trump in 2018, believed the president...
Because he chooses the best people. I mean, I ultimately don't want to hear about any of this shit because the best people... We've got idiots everywhere. We got morons running everything. I only know the best people. All we got to do is... we could solve these problems so fast. I will get the best people in there. We will knock this out. We've got idiots running the whole country. But I want some generals from central casting with a lot of ribbons and shit like that. Trump picked all these people. I mean, his fucking term ended with his own supporters chanting, hang Mike Pence, after they built a gallows on the Capitol grounds.
A mental decline after the election, the authors write.
Oh, yeah. That's right. He does sound a bit like Bat Boy. We've decided that he actually sounds like Porky Pig when he really gets carried away.
Communicated to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi in a phone call January 8th.
See what I mean?
He agreed with her evaluation Trump was unstable, according to a call transcript obtained by the authors. Now, again, That's not illegal, right? Milley is allowed to talk to Nancy Pelosi. What he's not allowed to do is call up the Chinese and start conveying this stuff.
Yeah, he is. And by the way, it doesn't have to be true. Because the shit you say to other people doesn't have to be true. Sorry, it's military diplomacy. Do you think, at any point, if there was a legit strike, the Chinese are like, they're not going to attack, and unless they call. Therefore, the mission is a go. And they send people in to take Taiwan, and they're like, there's no phone call, so we know we're not getting attacked. And then the American planes show up and like, wait a minute, you said you were going to call. Like, nobody believes that.
Believing that China could lash out if it felt at risk from an unpredictable and vengeful American president, Milley took action. The same day, he called the admiral overseeing U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, the military responsible for Asia and Pacific, and recommended postponing military exercises, and the admiral complied. Milley also summoned senior officers to review the procedures for launching nuclear weapons, saying the president alone could give the order, but also that he, Milley, had to be involved, which is a bit of a violation of the chain of command. Looking each in the eye, Milley asked the officers to affirm that they had understood in what he considered an oath. Milley went furthest in seeking to stave off a national security crisis, but his alarm was shared throughout the highest ranks of the administration, including CIA Director Gina Haspel, who told Milley, quote, "We are on the way to a right-wing coup." A right-wing coup.
Right. First of all, they were all aware of this. Everybody looked at Trump and knew he was a lunatic, and were very concerned about the power that the president has in our government. And secondly, none of this actually, this is all from Bob Woodward. So any of this that he's saying, oh my God, we should decide what this means based on what he's saying, is an affirmation from Ben Shapiro that we should take what Bob Woodward says as truth. And therefore, one of the things we should take as truth from Bob Woodward is that Trump knew how dangerous COVID was, played it down on purpose, lied about it to the American people as the deaths started to stack up, knowing that caution from his office could have slowed the spread of the disease. Yeah.
Again, there was no institutional support for the January 6th rioters. And in fact, it was a bunch of Republicans who signed off on the election in the states and in the federal government as well. Okay, now.
Yeah, but this was around the 6th, fucko. People died.
All of this is deeply dangerous stuff. As I'm suggesting, if you have an administrative bureaucracy, unelected officials who are actually making the policy of the United States.
They're appointed by the person who was elected. The decision that, and by the way, they also have to go, they have Senate hearings and everything. But you elect a person not just based on what they're going to do, but who they say they're going to bring in to fill the positions and make decisions. Because obviously, again, it doesn't reach the president's desk until there are no good choices. That, as Obama famously said, and a lot of presidents have dealt with, that you put people in charge that can handle these things, that can deal with these issues as they come up, because you trust their judgment and you can delegate authority. So, yes, did we elect Milley? No. But people voted for Trump, and this is who Trump chose. So when you vote for Trump, that's what you get. You get a bunch of people around him in the final days of his election going, this fucker is insane. I don't know where in this, they're not even elected. They're not even elected. You picked Trump because he said, I know all the best people. I'm going to put the best people in. We have stupid people. We're going to have the best people. It's the best people. I know the best people. I know a couple people. They could solve this in minutes. And then this is who he put in. And now he's bitching about the fact that they all determined, after working with the guy for a while, that he's fucking nuts.
In opposition to the elected leaders of the United States.
No, not in opposition to the elected leaders. In opposition to the guy that appointed them, who was losing his fucking mind.
You have on your hands a real threat to democracy, an actual coup.
Nope. Sorry, you appointed him. Am I trying to make sense to these people? I'm trying to explain that Ben's talking out of his ass, I suppose.
Right, the threat to democracy lies in unelected bureaucrats, not a part of the judicial branch, or at least appointed and voted on. Unelected bureaucrats making
appointed by an elected official, and when you vote, you choose this person not just because of the decisions they're going to make, not just because of the actions they're going to take, but who they say they're going to appoint, or the type of people, or the ethical standard they're going to hold the people that they appoint to. That's part and parcel to voting for someone. So I don't want to hear about, like, when it comes to the Joint Chiefs and stuff, we're not talking about IRS agents, for fuck's sake, that are hired later on and are way down the chain. If they're in the cabinet, or they've been chosen by the president to advise him, then they're on the voter who voted for that person.
In defiance of their democratically elected bosses.
No. When they get appointed, they take an oath to the Constitution, which supersedes the fact that their boss hired them. So he didn't get to commit a crime because the DOJ, well, I hired you to run the DOJ, so there's no such thing as a crime for me. That's the Bill Barr argument, that that the president, or that Nixon would put forward. If the president does it, then it is legal. That's the whole thing. It isn't a crime. Well, it is, because even though you appoint this person, you appoint them to fill a role where they take an oath to the Constitution, which supersedes their oath to you. They don't take an oath to the guy that hires them, that's been voted in to pick people. They're put in that position because the person that was elected, those voters have said, this is the guy to pick the people to put in a cabinet who will inform him about stuff, give him the truth. He can make a rational decision. He can bounce things off of people he agrees with, people he disagrees with, and he can come to a real consensus, smart decision based on all the factors. And those people, while they might have different opinions about their exercise of their oath, all take an oath that is a hard line in their behavior.
That's a serious problem. And we have procedures for people saying they don't want to follow illegal orders. What we don't have are procedures for you calling up a foreign power
and saying, move your ship out of the South China Sea area, the international waters, or we're going to fire on it. We've already launched. It's on its way. Move your boat, or your soldiers will die because it's on its way. We don't want to have to kill your soldiers, but it's on its way. You have 22 minutes. We do that a lot. We've done it in the Persian Gulf. It is not that uncommon.
Define foreign policy on your own as an appointee of the President of the United States in defiance of statute.
Statute?
And Milley needs to go, and he needs to go forthwith. Maybe he needs to be
forthwith.
I mean, that's insane stuff. And that would hold true regardless of who the President of the United States is. Nonetheless, the hatred for Trump means, and this is where we are in our politics, hatred for Trump means that the Democratic left expects, quote-unquote, deep state actors to do this sort of stuff.
Sorry, quote-unquote deep state actors? Ben, do you not have the balls to call someone deep state, or are you just borrowing QAnon phraseology because you're too weak to actually commit to it? Are they the deep state or not? They're not, but, I mean, they're appointed by the president. He picked them. The deep state would be people you don't even know who run stuff. They're the deep state.
They expect people in the administrative bureaucracy to thwart Republicans. This is why the ratchet only works one way. And again, it's not only true.
No, it doesn't. Where in the world is the legal precedent where Dems magically get their way when they're in office? That they get to do all kinds of illegal shit, but we don't. It never even gets a legal challenge because the deep state protects them. It's like, this is such a fucking fantasy.
To the military infrastructure, it's true when it comes to OSHA, it's true when it comes to the EPA, it's true when it comes to the IRS. The ratchet only works one way. Because
but let's be honest. Republican companies are the ones that are always fighting to make sure people, they don't have to pass rules to keep people from being crushed by a robotic forklift. I mean, you lose a worker, you lose a worker. I mean, honestly, you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs.
Republican is in office, an entire executive branch exists to thwart him. And when a Democrat is in office, an entire executive branch exists to placate, assuage, and forward all of his policy proposals. Here's Democratic Representative John Garamendi from California defending Milley's reported actions.
I'm talking about what General Milley did. You think that that's legitimate, that he would call a secret meeting and say, don't listen to the commander-in-chief, basically?
I believe that Milley would do that. Now, did he do it? Well, that remains to be seen. But what I know of that general and his role as chief of staff is that he would call a meeting, given the concerns of an unhinged president at that period of time.
And I don't know if he actually did it, but it sounds like something he would do. And the president was unhinged. And
Okay, so
is that supposed to be a gotcha? Is that supposed to be an aha? See? Proof. Positive. Deep state. We have a senator who's like, yeah, I think he would do it. It sounds like something he'd do. Maybe he did it. Maybe he didn't. I don't know. Maybe.
apparently this is all okay. MSNBC's Barry McCaffrey, who of course is a general himself, he said, well, it's fine. He was just trying to stop World War III.
I think what General Milley was doing, and by the way, routinely, the chairman, the service chiefs, the joint combatant commanders routinely are in contact with their counterparts globally, part of the deterrence of unwanted combat. I think he felt it important to not end up with a World War I start of a war through miscalculation on the part of the Chinese. So again, I think we ought to be fortunate. We got this Princeton grad, tremendous combat officer, extremely intelligent, law-based, trying to safeguard the transition to a...
Yeah, I wish this was more of a thing, but the reality is that this is what happens when politicized citizenry get whiff of a normal interaction that happens all the time behind the scenes, that's constantly going on, that has averted conflict after conflict, that is ratcheted down war, that has stopped us from getting into conflicts that we didn't need to be in. This happens a lot. And there are constant warnings like, move your stuff. If we're going to attack, he wants to attack here, you better move your shit or it's going to get hit. Because we're and by the way, Trump called the Russians personally and let them know that we were hitting the base in Syria and where it was going to be hit.
Elected President Biden administration.
Now, we do have diplomats, right? We have diplomats who are available.
Uh-huh.
Why didn't he walk across the office, Milley, to folks in the State Department and say to the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, there might be a miscalculation here?
Because those people talk to the State Department in other countries, effectively. The diplomatic corps, the military guys talk directly with their military equals in these countries. That's why. He just explained that.
Call up the Chinese and assure them that there is no imminent military action. Right? The idea here is that Milley was working. He was the man on the inside. Okay, CNN's Lieutenant General Mark Hertling also defended Milley. And I'm not sure how you defend the general who is calling up the enemy and trying to inform them about how he is going to essentially create the military policy on his own in defiance of the civilian leadership.
Well, it's not in defiance of the civilian leadership. It's one man going rogue and becoming a lunatic and perhaps launching an attack. Whereas the rest of the civilian leadership, including the Congress, which should be participating in any declaration of war with a new country when it's not a defensive act, which is what he was directly talking about. Because he wasn't going to call. He didn't say, look, if you guys hit us, we'll call you back. I mean, I've said this already. We'll cover it.
I think General Milley took some very prudent measures. General Milley isn't going to call the head of the People's Liberation Army in China and say, hey, don't worry about it, everything's going on. He's getting signals that other countries are concerned, as well they should have been during this period of time. They were all watching what was going on in the insurrection on the 5th of January. Mm-hmm. So I think General Milley didn't limit.
Is China our enemy? That's a tough question right now. Economically, they are definitely a distinct opponent. They act like an opponent. They are not above theft and attacking. So yeah, a legit concern. As far as military action as an enemy, that's where I would define the word enemy often is, when you're talking about potential for military strikes, military war. China has bigger fish to fry, and they don't have an ideology where they want to extend communism into the United States through military action, say the way the Russians did during the Cold War. It doesn't exist. The people aren't behind it. The internal mechanics of the country don't support it the way it technically did during the Cold War with the Russians. I would argue that Russia doesn't have that either, and right now it's just a resource issue.
President's power. I think if he did, that would be certainly a civil military action of the highest measure and should be condemned. But what he did was ensure the guardrails were in place. So I give him high marks for this based on what's described in the book.
High marks. Okay, again, him going to members of the military brass and saying, okay, there's still a chain and here's how the legalities work, that's fine. I really don't have a huge problem with that. Whether it's...
Well, if Bob Woodward wrote it down and you're saying that did happen and you're okay with that part, then the other part you have to take as true, which means you also have to take as true that Trump told Woodward that he knew COVID was way more dangerous, that it was way more deadly than the flu, way more contagious, and admitted he wanted to play it down so as not to panic the markets.
Or not. Right? That's within his purview. I'm going to keep focusing on, he called up the Chinese government, right, after they'd unleashed, by the way, a worldwide virus. He called up the Chinese government.
Right, hence the... Yes, hi.
And told them about what America's military plans would or would not be. This, of course, led President Trump to...
No, not what our plans would be. If we were going to attack, he'd call him first. It's coming. Again, move your ships.
Back here was President Trump yesterday.
First of all, if it is actually true, which is hard to believe, that he would have called China and done these things and was willing to advise them of an attack or in advance of an attack, that's treason. For him to say that I would even think about attacking China, I think he's trying to just get out of his incompetent withdrawal out of Afghanistan.
Okay.
Oh, God. So, you tell him, Ben. Of course, you just played a clip from the guy who said that, told Bob Woodward that he knew COVID was worse and that it was going to kill a lot more people and that he liked to play it down because he didn't want to scare the markets and it would wreck the economy and the number of American deaths didn't really factor into that or whatever. And you just weigh that against it.
Trump is not wrong about this. And it does speak to the fact that once the bureaucracy is entrenched, it stays entrenched. How's this?
Once the bureaucracy is entrenched, it stays entrenched. Trump appointed Milley. Milley is not a bureaucrat. Trump put Milley in charge of the very things he took charge of. Good God. Just the mental laziness of this shit.